I'm Beinn Irbhinn, and I am the voice of the Scottish Socialist Party in Inverclyde. The hot topic on the local political scene recently has been the issues surrounding the Beacon Theatre. The Beacon, of course, have gone cap in hand to the council, asking for money to pay their debts. We're told if this money is not forthcoming, then the theatre will be forced to close. At a time of savage and unnecessary cuts to local jobs and services, driven by the Tories in London and enthusiastically supported by their friends in New Labour, it is no surprise that the idea of handing the theatre a no-strings-attached bailout has raised some anger locally. By the time this broadcasts, the meeting to decide whether or not to bail out the Beacon will have taken place, but judging by the comments from local councillors, we can have an educated guess at how that meeting will have gone. Both the New Labour group and the SNP group on the council have indicated that they are in favour of the bailout. At the Scottish Socialist Party, we don't want to see the theatre close either. The arts are a valuable part of our society. Inverclyde is a better place for having the Beacon Theatre. But this no bailout campaign have highlighted some aspects that need closer scrutiny. I've heard and seen people say that this is a one aspect issue. We either bail out the Beacon or we don't. That is at best a very naive thing to say, at worst deliberately dishonest. There are lots of things going on here, and if we are to have a healthy local democracy, we have to be able to talk about these, and the no bailout campaign have certainly been doing an excellent job at getting people talking. The obvious issue is, how did the Beacon even end up in this position? How are the management unaware of the contractual clauses and obligations in the construction of the theatre that led them to be in this situation? There is also the issue of who should own the Beacon. In a booklet that I recently wrote for the SSP, I argued that the correct economical setup is a mix of public and privately owned industries and the like. I made a point of going through everything that belongs in the public domain, or in other words, should be owned by the people. Among other things, like industries of national importance, I argued that the arts belong in the public sector. Art is for the people. Just look at the sums of money coming out of the public purse and going into the Beacon, and that's before we even count this bailout. And yet we have no democratic control or accountability for how that money is spent or how the theatre is operated. I know that the SNP have argued for a councillor to sit on the board of the Beacon. At the Scottish Socialist Party, we would go further than this and argue that the theatre should be brought into what would be commonly thought of as public democratic ownership. Not just funded by the public purse, as it currently is, but operated by a democratically accountable body. We suggest Inverclyde Leisure, but there are various ways this could be achieved. We also want to see greater levels of democratic input into such bodies, but I'll leave those arguments for another day. In the grand scheme of things, we think the Beacon should be saved, and we hope that this is the outcome of the meeting. But let's not just be giving cash away for nothing. Of course, saving the Beacon also fits into the bigger picture of what the SSP stands for. Unlike New Labour and the SNP, we don't only want to save the 60 or so jobs at the Beacon, we want to save every local job that is under threat. We don't just want to save this one local service, we want to save every local service. Among the slogans we use, I think this one sums our position up perfectly. Not one worker to lose their job, not one service to be lost. So let's not fall for the politicians' trick of trying to make us decide which services are more important than others. Let's unite, stand together and say no cuts in Inverclyde. Some of you might have heard the recent debate between our regional organiser for this area, Richie Venton, and Councillor Stephen McCabe. If you haven't managed yet, have a look on the Listen Again section of Inverclyde Radio, or search for Inverclyde SSP on Spreaker and SoundCloud, or even YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, and you'll find links to it there. Councillor Stephen McCabe called this debate between himself and Richie a score draw. In my opinion, you would have to be extremely generous to Councillor McCabe to award him a draw, but I would probably say that anyway. So as I say, find the debate on Inverclyde Radio or elsewhere. If you missed it first time around, have a listen and judge for yourselves. The debate was, of course, centred around the proposed cuts to local jobs and services. We demand that there are no jobs or services lost, a no cuts budget in other words. Councillor McCabe was defending his role in inflicting these cuts on the people of Inverclyde. In my opinion, it's not difficult to spot the obvious glaring flaw in McCabe's logic. Let's recap exactly what his reply to Richie was. He said, "The problem with your tactics is that the money will run out." Or, in other words, if we implement a no-cuts budget and run at a deficit, the money will eventually run out. Our grant will still be cut, and we'll have to make the cuts further down the road anyway. That seems like a fair assessment of what he said. But think about it. The worst case scenario, if the council were to set a no-cuts budget, is that we would have to make the cuts at a later date. So what is McCabe and the council's alternative? To simply roll over and not even put up a fight. To just implement these cuts with no effort whatsoever put in to resist them. McCabe, as predicted, has insisted that he's opposed to these cuts. So, of course, have other Labour councillors and politicians, not to mention the SNP, who also claim to be anti-austerity. But with all these anti-austerity voices supposedly on the scene, should there not be a visible mass movement of resistance to this ideological Tory attack on our jobs and services? There should be a deafening roar of opposition, but from New Labour and the SNP we are hearing barely a whisper. In fact, the only party truly representing the majority in their opposition to these cuts is the Scottish Socialist Party. New Labour's true position on these cuts was revealed when their MPs, including local MP Ian Mackenzie, voted for another £30 billion of cuts. If New Labour are really opposed to these cuts, as Councillor McCabe claims, then why are their MPs voting for more? Can we expect Councillor McCabe to condemn her local New Labour MP for his complicity in voting for more cuts? There is a valuable lesson here. Don't judge politicians by what they say, judge them by what they do. What New Labour have done is vote to support the Tory austerity agenda and inflict savage cuts on our jobs and services. They try to defend themselves by claiming they were voting to balance the budget. Well, scrapping Trident rather than our jobs and services would balance the budget, but guess what? New Labour also voted to spend £100 billion renewing Trident. Their excuse for not doing as we asked locally by setting a no-cuts budget is particularly weak. As I've already said, the worst that can happen is that the cuts will happen anyway, but that is worst case scenario. The alternative is that we win, force Westminster to reallocate funds from elsewhere, and trust me, there is a lot of money elsewhere that doesn't need to be elsewhere, such as in Trident. And if we do that, then we won't have to endure any cuts. Or maybe the immediate outcome would be somewhere between these two positions, and less severe cuts would be made. By simply rolling over and not doing anything, we are certain to suffer these cuts. Fight back, mobilise and set a no-cuts budget, and there is a chance we don't suffer any cuts. So which option do you find most acceptable? Councillor McCabe and New Labour's choice to just meekly accept these cuts, or the SSP's call for resistance and a chance to avoid these cuts altogether? This is not fantasy politics from the Scottish Socialist Party. Anti-austerity is a viable political option. That has been demonstrated very clearly by Syriza in Greece, where on Sunday they won the general election there and now form the government. Immediately they have begun to reverse the austerity agenda that was being forced upon the Greek people. Our national co-spokesperson, Colin Fox, was invited over to Greece by Syriza to witness this historic victory. Comrades from Inverclyde attended a meeting in Glasgow where Colin recounted his trip to Greece. Search Independence Live for a recording of the meeting. It's truly inspirational what is happening in Greece at the moment. Although, as Syriza themselves have said, getting elected was the easy bit. The real battle starts now. It's a battle that the Scottish Socialist Party will give them real concrete support in. It's also a battle that will engulf Europe. In the very near future, both Podemos in Spain and Sinn Féin in Ireland could repeat Syriza's victory. It is exciting times ahead for the European left.
People's flag is deepest red. It's shrouded oft our martyr dead, and ere their limbs grew stiff and cold, their hearts' blood dyed its every fold. So raise the scarlet standard high, within its shade we live and die, though cowards flinch and traitors snare, we'll keep the red flag flying here. The ground the Frenchman loves its blaze, the sturdy German chants its praise. In Moscow's vaults, its hymns are sung, Chicago swells, its surging throng. Soar is the scarlet standard high, within its shade we live and die, though cowards flinch and traitors snare, we'll keep the red flag flying here. It's waved above our infant nights, when all ahead seemed dark as nights, and it's witnessed many a deed and vow. We mustn't change its colour now, so is the scarlet standard high, within its shade we live and die, though cowards flinch and traitors snare, we'll keep the red flag flying here. Well recalls our triumphs past, it gives us hope of peace at last. The symbol breaks, the message plain of human rights and human gain. So is the scarlet standard high, within its shade we live and die, though cowards flinch and traitors stare, we'll keep the red flag flying here. With our heads uncovered, swear we are to bear it onward till we fall. Come dungeons dark or gallows grim, this song will be our parting hymn. So is the scarlet standard high, within its shade we live and die, though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here.
Until next time, power and peace to the people.